Let's play and learn with making diamond metal papers. Here is a sample of one that I made in Photoshop Elements, and I used just those things available in Photoshop Elements and nothing else to make this one. Here's another one I made, but I used texture from a photo I took. And this is the same one, only I've made the pattern a lot smaller, so this does look a lot more realistic. And you can do fun things such as playing with blending modes to get other great effects for your papers. And so this is what we're going to be learning to do today. And here is my file, and I've simply created a blank layer and filled it with a color, any color. If you go down to the Effects menu and then choose Patterns, and scroll on down, and you're going to find one that says Diamond Plate. Make sure you're on that blank layer and apply that layer style, and you can see you immediately have, well, here from playing I made that big, you immediately have a diamond plated paper. But as you can see, this has a bevel on it, and the only way really to get rid of that for paper is to resize this upward. And now you can see you have an effective paper here. If you want, you can use a gradient layer style. This one is set to linear burn, and you can see that gives you a whole new effect. Let me show you a few more things though with this layer style. I'm going to create a new layer. Let's turn off this first one, and I'm going to make a rectangle and just fill it with any color. It happens to be black right now. Deselect, and let's apply that diamond plated layer style. As you can see, it does look a lot more effective on elements than it does an entire page. With the entire page, the glow of the bevel was up pretty high and kind of takes over the whole page. You can try to change the size of the bevel, but as you can see, it not only takes away the edge of the bevel, where it's black there and white there, but it also takes away the whole effect of that bevel on the little pegs or rivets in the layer style. Another fun thing that most people don't realize is hidden here in Photoshop Elements, if you go to the Layer drop-down menu, Layer Style, and Scale Effects, it brings up this little pop-up box, and you can actually scale your rivets to fit for your size of the element. It's pretty cool, huh? So you could use that and maybe be happy with it, but I'm going to show you how you can create this by making your own pattern. And if you remember, it's going to turn out looking more like this, much more realistic. And so here's my pattern shape files in my layer style, or my layers palette, but we're going to make a new set so I can show you how I made those. So I'm going to create a new layer, go to the View drop-down menu, and I'm going to turn on my grid. I'm going to quickly show you my grid preferences. I have it set to inches because I can identify with inches, every 1 inch with subdivisions of 2. So when you go back to the grid, each one of these solid color divisions is actually 1 inch apart, and in between the dotted lines indicate 1/2 inches. So I'm going to get my elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to draw an oval that is 2 inches wide and about 1/4 of an inch in depth, I guess. You could make it larger if you wanted. it would create variety, so the pattern's your own, but this is the way I'm going to make it for this tutorial. I'm going to fill that in. Let's deselect. Next, I'm going to duplicate that layer, go to the image drop down menu, rotate. I'm going to flip it 90 degrees left or right. It won't matter because it's a shape that it wouldn't matter. Couldn't think of the word I wanted. I'm going to move this over so it's on this 1-inch line, which is about 1.5 inches away from this one. And then I'm going to duplicate that again, and I'm going to move it right down here where the bottom of this oval ends where the top of this one begins. And now I'm going to go back and grab this horizontal one and duplicate it, and I'm going to move it right here. Let's move this one up there. And so this one is centered with this one, and this one is centered with this one. They're all centered with each other. Now, to make the pattern, I'm going to get my rectangular marquee tool, and because the grid helps things snap right in place, it also helps this selection tool snap right in place. And I'm going to make a selection around that. Go to my Edit drop-down menu, define pattern. You could name it or not name it. I'm going to name mine Diamond Metal. Hit Control D to deselect. Let's get rid of our grid. We're not going to need it anymore, and make these layers invisible. Now I'm going to go make a new adjustment layer for pattern, and it immediately comes up with my most recent pattern. Now you can see I have the grid there on my page. As easy as that. You can save that pattern if you want to use over and over. I'm going to scale this down some. Purposefully leave it a little bit big for your viewing so you can see how the effects are. And now we need to make it look like metal. So I'm going to create a new layer, put it below this. And if I go back up to the Effects and Patterns palette, you're going to see a handy brushed metal layer style. Make sure I'm on my correct layer and apply that layer style. Oh, you can see now it didn't work because I don't have anything filled in here. Let's paint that with a color, any color. There you go. Now I have a brushed metal. And you could play with the styles if you want. I don't want to do that right now, but that's how things would make everybody's papers would be individual by you playing with the various things. I'm going to right click and simplify this layer so that is committed into that layer, and now you can see it's a metal layer. I'm going to duplicate our metal layer and move it up. So now if you look at my layers palette, I have my pattern sandwiched between two metal layers. I'm going to go ahead and make this one invisible for right now, and I'm going to go ahead and, now that I think I've got the size that I want, I'm going to right click and simplify this pattern layer. Now you're going to notice that normally the rivets are not horizontal and vertical as in this sample, and you could try to go through complicated methods to get a pattern that applies it in the correct direction, but for me it's just much easier to do it in this method. I'm going to hit Control T to bring up the Transform tool, and up here in the directional box I'm going to pick 45 degrees and accept that change. Now you can see that the pattern is actually sitting in the correct direction for the diamond metal. However, the edges here are not filled in. So what we need to do is simply resize this up to fill the entire area. So if you remember that you're going to be doing this step a little bit down the road, it looks like my metal paper has moved on me. Make it a little bigger. And this one too. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Okay, it's still not big enough. Let's just bring it on out. You don't have to worry about it. This one seems accurate. Oh, surprises. Okay, back to where we were at. So when you are creating the pattern layer and choosing the scale, you want to take in consideration that later on you're going to be resizing this layer up, and so that you would want to make it a little smaller than what you're going to want it to be, and not too difficult to understand. It's much easier to understand that than to try to make a pattern with the rivets this way. Next step is to go ahead and turn this top metal layer on, and I'm going to press Control G so it is now grouped with the pattern layer. If I turn off the bottom layer, you can see now that the rivets have taken on the metal color. With the pattern layer as the active layer, now we're going to apply the magic. Let's go to the bevels, and I like to see my layer, make sure I'm on the right one, and choose a simple inner bevel. And you can see now it looks like a riveted piece of paper. If you go to the drop shadow then and add a noisy drop shadow, you can see it even takes on a more realistic effect. The distance is a little bit high, so I'm going to bring that way down and house that for a nice riveted paper. And once you get your pattern, you can even do this much quicker, because you wouldn't have to make your pattern. You're just making that new adjustment layer and applying some layer styles and turning it. Not too difficult. Let me show you then. Here is a fill color layer. I'm going to turn that on. You can see I have it set to multiply, and that is how you can instantly make yet another variety to your paper. Let's turn this off, and I have here a photo that I took of well, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You really don't want to know, but it's metal off of a metal object that I'm not going to tell you what kind of object it was. And so I've turned it into a square, and here is a pattern layer that I've already created, because I didn't want to have to go through the steps again for the sake of the tutorial. And you can see it makes a much cooler effect. You can see that the rivets are not colored in metal yet, so I'm going to duplicate my metal paper, bring it above, press Control G. There you go. You'll notice that the rivets have, if I can, the same cut in them as the paper below, and I really didn't like the way that looked, and so when I was making my papers I actually went and flipped it somehow, and now you can see it looks like the cut goes under the rivets, and the rivets are probably cut themselves down here somewhere else, but I thought that was important to go ahead and turn this paper. I thought it made it look a lot better. Okay, now I have a shape here. Let's show you how you can put this onto shapes, and I'm just going to duplicate some layers here for us to work with, turn off those other layers. So I have this shape. It's a tag shape that I created using selection tools, and I am going to go ahead and hold down my control key and click here to get the marching ants around my shapes. Make my paper layer the active layer and hit Control J. So now I have the shape cut out of, oh, don't move it, the shape cut out of the metal. And I'm going to duplicate that shape, and then I'm going to take this pattern fill that I already made that we were previously using, because we don't need to go through creating a new adjustment layer and the styles and turning it again and again. And so I'm going to put that here between the two, just as we had in the last one. However, if you go to the top one and press Control G, you can see it applies that really well to the tag, but it also has this pattern all out here. And so what you need to do then is to go ahead and hold down your Control key and get the marching ants. Go to the Select drop-down menu, Inverse, and let's get rid of the pattern outside by hitting the delete key with that pattern layer active. Control D to deselect. Looks pretty cool, huh? I think that the distance is a little high for such a smaller shape, so I'm going to move that down. It may have looked good on the paper, not as good on here. But let me show you, there's actually an error hiding here. And so I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to fill it with white, and you can see the error appear. We have on the outside of this tag little noisy drop shadows wherever the rivets are. So that is not something that we would want to share with anybody else or have on our layout. And so in order to get rid of that, what you want to do is, with this top layer as your active layer, right click and merge down. And now I'm going to right click and simplify the layer. And now you can see that those are still there, but we have this layer in a format now that we can easily cut. I'm going to hold down the Control key, get a shape of that layer again, select, inverse, or you could just hit Control I, that does it too. And with this pattern layer as the active layer, hit the delete key, and all of those little things, fuzzy things around the edges go away. And so you're going to want to make sure that you have your sizing and the sizing on your layer styles exactly the way you want it before you merge all that and simplify it, because once you do that, then it's into a permanent position. With this lower layer as the active layer, I'm going to go back to the bevels and choose a simple inner bevel, and you can see that adds some depth to my tag. And I can now save this. Of course, turn off that white background layer, crop it, and choose to save that as a .png file, a PNG file, so that I can use that on other layouts. And so I want to see what kind of ideas and things that you come up with to create. Maybe head on out, take that photo, find some metal, take that photo so you have some realistic metal rather than just the layer styles in Photoshop Elements, and do create some things, upload them, and share them with other people here on the forum. Share them with me. As a teacher, I always love seeing what the students do with what I'm teaching them. That's the most rewarding part about being a teacher. And so I really am going to be watching the forums, and I look forward to seeing what you could do. Thanks for watching this video.